I wanted to bring something to your attention that's been on my mind, and I'm sure it's on yours too. Canadian youth unemployment. It's at record highs, 14.6% by the latest statistics, and I'm certain that it's much higher than that. I was walking down the street actually recently on a day off, and I noticed a lot of young people just kind of wandering around aimlessly. And now maybe it was just me. Maybe I just caught people wandering around aimlessly on like a PA day from school or something. A lot of my friends have noticed this as well. Many young people walking around our cities, not having anything to do. And that's kind of scary. So the reason I'm talking about this is because I've noticed this shift in our economy. From 2013 onwards, it seems like there's been this massive shift with Amazon, Uber Eats, Ubers. Everything happened very rapidly, say from 2013, 2014, 2015 to now, where the convenience economy has grown. And, now you can get Amazon packages the same day. You can go on your phone and order whatever you want to eat, to drink, groceries, pharmaceutical drugs, and get them within a few hours or an hour even. And so this kind of gig economy has swept over our big cities, and it's done so in other parts of the world, of course, as well. And so I kept thinking to myself, what has fueled this? Because this is a rapid shift and change in our demographics, our population, and our economy. And I was looking into some of the research, and this is pretty interesting, but during this time, 2013 to 2025, approximately 3 million jobs had been created in Canada. That's pretty incredible considering our population growth isn't like other countries. We have a declining fertility rate. So 3 million jobs is like almost 10% of the population. I mean, it is pretty wild to think of how many jobs that is in relation to the number of Canadians. And during this time, again, it's mostly young people that are employed in these sectors. And during this time, there's only about 200,000 young people that were added to the population as well, which is also interesting. So I'm thinking like, okay, then how does this all work? Well, interestingly enough, over that same period, 2013 to 2025, stats just came out, I think a few months ago. Non-permanent residents grew by 3 million people. That includes temporary foreign workers, international mobility program permit holders, refugees. Refugees occupy a smaller share, but that said, non-permanent residents grew by 3 million, almost the exact number that jobs grew over this period of time. And so this is, again, very interesting that these gig economies were sprouted up during this time, and the number of temporary foreign workers that came in is almost identical to the jobs that have been created in these new sectors. I just want to pause there. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not someone who thinks about, tinfoil hat conspiracies. Maybe not all the time, but it's so wild to me that it seems like there's this 1-for-1 when it comes to the number of temporary residents and the number of jobs that have been created. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, this industry was basically created for temporary foreign workers. That's a natural conclusion. Where do Canadian citizens fall in this mix, right? Like if I'm 16, 17 years old, I would love to deliver food, as my first job. I'd love to deliver, I don't know, I probably don't have my license or I just have my G2, but like I would love to do Amazon deliveries in my area. If I'm thinking back to growing up just east of Toronto and, people's first jobs were at the mall and, cutting grass or whatever. I mean, delivering Amazon packages, that's pretty sweet. And you can even probably stay within your community, your area. So you're not like driving, across the city. to deliver packages. You probably could go to the warehouse, which is probably closer to your community, and just deliver in that, like, whatever, 15-20 minute drive radius. And so of course I'd love that. I'd love to deliver food, like you not only get an hourly wage, you also get tips. And, as long as you got a good e-bike or bike or whatever, I mean, you're pretty much good. In some cases, Uber Eats has people walking and delivering your food. I mean, like the barrier to getting a job for young people is so low. Like, I remember 16 years old with my resume, which was like one page, going to store at the mall and just handing it out. And, I feel like I just look at the jobs that have been created by the stats, like it's so much easier. And I remember at the time too, like, I would love to deliver people's like courier messages or their pharmaceutical drugs, or, especially for the elderly that can't leave their house and there's mobility issues there. That would be a great gig. And yet, interestingly enough, we're seeing less and less young Canadians employed. I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I did, but youth unemployment in Canada today is 14.6%. And I would argue that number is probably higher because of underemployment as well. We haven't seen these numbers of youth unemployment since 1998, I believe, or like the early 2000s. It's been a very long time. And so how could it be that there's millions of jobs created? We've only added 200,000 young Canadians into the workforce during this time, and yet young Canadian unemployment is so high. Like, what's going on? And it goes back to my theory that the jobs that have been created are almost only for temporary foreign workers. They're only for temporary non-permanent residents. They're not for young Canadians. And so I'm scratching my head thinking, then what jobs are for young Canadians? I don't know. And clearly, I don't think the government knows, because youth unemployment is high. And as I've mentioned, I think underemployment for youth is much higher as well. And in some communities, I mentioned this before, Peel region here just outside Toronto, youth unemployment, I think, is around 22%. That's pretty wild. 1 in 5 youth are unemployed. I mean, it's just wild to me. And so I just want to also just throw out some stats, because I think it's so important we talk about this as Canadians. Ontario, during this time, 280% increase in temporary foreign worker permits. British Columbia, 240%. Quebec, youth participation falls 4 points as a result. These are very, very scary, statistics. I just want to mention also as well, cost of living is out of this world. It just keeps going up. And I know people are saying tariffs, et cetera, but, I don't want to just blame it all on tariffs. I think the Canada Price Index is going up. Like, it's just been going up. So if a young person can't find a minimum wage job now, I'm just very terrified for their future prospects. So I just want to pose this as a question, as a concerned Canadian citizen myself. I know the impact a first job has. I remember my first job. I made lifelong friends at my first job that I still keep in touch with today. And I know that experience had such an indelible impact on me. I learned the value of a $20 bill. Back then, minimum wage was $6.85, if you can believe it. But I understood what a $20 bill meant and how hard it was to work for that. I understood what saving was and making it on your own and trying to, build your life, dollar by dollar. I learned a lot about the broader economy and how important it was to save money and invest and all that at a very young age. But beyond that, I learned tangible skills. I learned hard work. I knew what it was like, when my parents would come home after a long day and be like, why are you guys like so down in the dumps? Like, let's go out, let's go do something. It's like, yeah, well, when you have a hard day at work where your boss is on you, or, you're trying to do your best and your boss tells you something, or your colleagues upset you, whatever the case is, it's very mentally, emotionally, physically taxing, and you learn resiliency through those experiences. And so for young Canadians to be denied those tangible and intangible skills that are developed so young, I just see this as a recipe for long-term disaster for them. Anxiety, stress, depression, that feeling of like, I'm not fully part of this economy, like I'm living at home. I'm in my early 20s, then suddenly it's your mid 20s, and suddenly it's your late 20s. And I'm not trying to make excuses here, but I know when you feel crowded out of an economy, you feel defeated, you feel deflated. And so this is my pitch to both the Canadian government and employers who have been advocating for more temporary foreign workers. There's a real issue with not hiring Canadians. Now, everyone can have their opinions. Canadians are lazy, or I've heard all of it online. Okay, like those are assumptions, but at the end of the day, this plan where we build a gig economy and we only hire temporary foreign workers, because let me tell you something, I cannot for the life of me find the unemployment rate for temporary foreign workers or international mobility permit holders or temporary residents anywhere on StatsCan's website, nowhere. So I think that's by design, because I would argue that the temporary foreign worker unemployment rate here in Canada is probably a percentage point or two at most, while our own Canadian citizens, young Canadian citizens, have a double-digit unemployment rate. That can't be fair. It can't be fair. Our government has to be prioritizing Canadian citizens. It has to. That's its responsibility to its people. Its responsibility to its people is to make sure that Canadians can find employment, that can be fully employed or partly employed, and they can continue building and living the life that they want. And I feel like along the way, we've lost that. So I'm going to keep exploring this. This is too important for the lifeblood of our communities, our country. Young people are the future. I know people say that. People told me that when I was young. I still consider myself young, but young people are the future. I don't mean to make light of this. You've all told me that your kids can't find work. The numbers prove it. And I hope someone in government, someone in our media, someone in a high-ranking employer is listening to this, because this message needs to get out. I'm going to keep exploring this. Please let me know what you think. Subscribe, like, share, comment below. Let's keep building this, because so many Canadians need to know what's going on. Thanks again, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.